never saw anything so beautiful in all my life before the 1914 war. It was all heather and broom and all rabbits. Very beautiful.
Loads and loads of curlews were here and duck, because it's quite wet in one part, but we never see them now. I think possibly last year there might have been one pair of curlews. That's when we think the spring sprung, when we hear them.
I've seen brown linnets after they've finished breeding, just like the swallows swarming to go. And now you never see none. You see no siskins. Chaffinches, only just the odd ones. I've seen as many as 50 goldfinches flying all together. Now you never see one hardly.
Today it's 333 acres of low, nondescript scrub and farming land, rubble-strewn and litter-blown. For the motorists revving away from the roundabout where two trunk roads meet, the likely question is not who killed Prees Heath, but who cares who killed it. For the poet Eleanor Cooke, however, commissioned by West Midlands Arts and Common Ground, Prees Heath is somewhere fought over for high stakes. Where songbirds no longer fly, injunctions may. There are threatening phone calls and hedges dug up at dead of night. But the real subject of her 7-part poem is the barely surviving spirit of the land itself. Because, as she showed me, this is a secret part of England which has never been fully possessed by anyone or anything.
You can see Tremlow's Hall and Tremlow's Farm. Tremlow's Hall up to the north and the farm on our right on the south. And you can see the light aircraft just in front of it there. Where we're standing now must be almost exactly where the Ice Age stopped. A group of students did some geological studies some years ago and told Mr. Matson at the Tremlows that from samples they had taken, they could actually see where the Ice Age had ground to a halt here, halfway across the heath. And I think there's something terrifically evocative about that, standing here with the wind just blowing gently across this enormous expanse. And you get no idea of the enormous expanse of the heath until you're actually here in the middle of it. And here the Ice Age stopped. The Green Man actually did win a battle here once before.
Here, where we stand, Earth broke the ice grip, wrote history in rock.
Look where the Ice Age slithered to a halt. Here, between the Twemlows and the farm.
Where we stand, the Green Man laughed but didn't see the grey men plotting.
Or hear the gypsy's finch in its iron cage cry,
Behind you.
softly to the last lark.
Now trees come lately ghost write the straight lines of the plough into a mortal fiction.
Wow.
Look at the lapwings.
Yes.
There's a flock of lapwings just lifted from the ploughed land over on the east side in front of the Twemlow's farm, just lifting their white underbellies into the sun and just like a piece of origami, really, twisting up into the sunlight and moving away. Quite marvellous piece of spontaneous art.
Nature doesn't always oblige like that, but Eleanor Cooke has been able to draw on the long community memory of Prees Heath and carve it into her poem. Just north of the roundabout, where half a dozen straggling cafes slake the thirst of lorry drivers from Wolverhampton and tourists from Chester, we peer in at the window of the homely Breckland.
Whenever you ask anybody anything about the history of the Heath, the thing they all say is, did you know there was a cinema at the side of the Heath for the soldiers in the First World War? And this is the site of it here at the Breckland. The films would all be silent films at that time. And now where the films were being shown is this cafe area with tables and menus propped up on the tables and everybody reading the menus in silence and waiting for something to happen in much the same way perhaps as the soldiers were waiting for something to happen in a very much larger sense, in that their life was coming to a point, a climax, whether that was a climax of life or death. Probably in 80% of cases, death.
They are waiting where the lorries pull in, where the raven cleans his claws. A tap, a stopping place, where dreams flash across a silent screen.
The cafe used to be a cinema, a theatre for the troops in the Great War.
Everyone tells you that. Everyone wants to rerun the sure-footed black and white epic that's turned the heath to dust. Cafe scene, a foyer. Enter shadows.
They move across the set. Yellow spots like bright but broken sunlight. The shadows sharpen as an usherette directs them inside.
Cut! Cinema scene.
The film is in progress. The stars are pointing out of the screen. The shadows lift cards from tables, read the prompts in silence. The stars repeat the unspoken lines.
Cut!
The shadows watch and wait. The film goes on. There is no intermission. How long can shadows wait? Not to the end. They're only passing trade. The trench, the foxhole, no man's land.
Cut!
The shadows rise, pockets jingling. The stars whisper.
Can you hear their silver shillings? Anyone can get them, even extras from the king. One to close each eye. Take no notice of them. There are shadows enough for the fields of France.
And the soldiers used to have to walk from Prees Heath to Whitty Station when we were going abroad. And the sergeants, what was over them here, they was the first to get shot when they got them abroad.
All this bottom corner here, and it's all grown over now. There wasn't a tree down here when we came here. But they've had these zigzag trenches to demonstrate to the troops how to dig their trenches out there and how to protect themselves from crossfire and that sort of thing.
There we go. If you can imagine, this would probably be about 2 foot deeper than it is now. And they're built in a zigzag kind of line. And they're just like the slip trenches would have been on the front in France. And the soldiers were trained here in this area to get used to the kind of life that they would have had.
It's interesting because, I mean, now we can actually see over the top quite easily, can't
Yes,
we? Presumably, when they were originally dug, they were much deeper. And the sort of tendency of the heath to level itself out, is that achieved by nature itself, or have people filled it in?
Oh, well, I think possibly they've been very convenient for people on adjoining properties. They will dump garden rubbish and earth, and gradually the sides of it get worn down, and that in itself fills in the bottom.
They are marching. November.
And the morning tastes wet with still growing death. A man lifts dead leaves into a barrow, steady with habit, grasps the handle, sweeping, making, the maker of barrow mounds. He empties it into a convenient trench.
Trench life makes cowards of us all.
Trenches filling with wet, with dying.
The whole system of defence should be swallowed at one gulp.
Filling with leaves.
Memories reach back to that other world before the First World War. Bill Sands is as old as the century and still lives in Tilstock, one of the Heath's 3 parishes, long after he ceased to catch songbirds there. Now he remembers people.
And a little fellow from Prees, we used to call him Friday. His proper name was Bill Walford. Billy Walford.
Remember Friday Walford with a bag of rabbits on his back?
Friday?
Well, he wasn't very big.
Then a second war came, and with it changes that nobody could fail to notice. Bill was roped in to clear trees for an airfield.
9 acre down the Twemlows Lane, Fripp and Sapney a tree, fall them and dress all the booze up them.
Soon it will all be taken away. The heather and the gorse, the open sky, the trees leaning over the edge.
Threepence halfpenny a tree I got. 18 acres and 15 after, to give an opening for the plains.
Then we come on to Gallantry Bank, 18 acre, 5pence one 9 acre, and Fripp and Sapney the other.
Why was it different prices?
Bigger trees.
He dropped the first bomb over on the railway, and he dropped one by the NAFI tent, only a few yards from the NAFI tent, and then he dropped another one over here. He dropped one in the garden here.
Bomber went to Liverpool, couldn't find the sea. Came back over Prees Heath with bombs 2 and 3. Fire fell on Tilstock, on camp, and...
Bless my soul!
The milkman's gardens disappeared and left a gaping hole.
Must have wrecked your garden.
Oh, yes, it buried the fruit trees that never saw again. And, it wasn't so very long after that, one Saturday morning, just before 12 o'clock, We had a terrific bump over this way here. They dropped a bomb by the side of the railway line, and he come over that oak tree there. He only just cleared by a few feet and swung round, and then he strapped Woolwich laundry and a big chimney there with bullets from his cannons.
Here's that nice Nurse Fletcher parking in the lane. Is that a heron in the sky? No, it's a German plane. Out comes his machine gun while Nurse says...
Where's the pain?
He's turned her shiny motor to a sieve to catch the rain.
Oh, it's a lively place.
Wilf Bebbington's memory of another incident, more tragic and involving one of our own aircraft, has been turned into one of the few prose sections of the poem.
And he'd been doing a few, what they call bumps, taking off and landing, training, you see. And as far as I can understand, he took it on his own bat to have another fling round. One engine cut out, and he gave it all the power he had to keep a lift on, and it swerved him over. And he hit a tall birch tree at the far corner of the field there, took off the end of his wing, and he dropped one fuel tank on the end of his wing on the ground there. And he crashed down just behind the edge here. And two was killed outright, and one died afterwards. Rear gunner, he was thrown out, and he only had a broken nose.
Later, it would be May. My man was wanting pea sticks. He thought about the brushwood lying there where it had fallen. He was breaking up the twigs when he saw something shining. A piece of luck, he thought it was. ½ a crown. But he was wrong.
I picked it up and I realised it was a watch, turned it over, and you couldn't see the figures on it for the condensation inside it. I wound it up and away it went.
He brought it into the warm and opened the case and left it on the sideboard to dry out. It went all right in the end. I'm wearing it now.
The woman smiles and lifts her wrist. The hands of the watch shine luminous in the dusk. A faint but audible ticking marks each second's flight.
It's 25 minutes fast.
Well, it hasn't been wound up for years. Well, for a long
Well, it's
time.
going. It's going.
Yes.
The second hand's going round.
Oh, yes. It's a very, very silent tick. You have a job to hear it.
Catch!
A shout as the ball flies out. Hands fly, reach for the sky.
A bounce! Wide!
And a tumbling stride, swerve and dive. The ball's alive.
Coarse cricket was played here. It was the barely submerged fragments of old runway that gave the ball more unpredictable life than a West Indian fast bowler. Golf was more orderly than coarse.
White balls sailing the arch of sky, and green, 9 green islands in the broom.
Other sportsmen have pursued their quarry across the heath, though, and to devastating effect.
When the broom is in flower, that was twice a year, spring and autumn, and the gorse is a fine place, and the heather. And also they tell me, the scientific people, that a blue butterfly, very rare on here.
There he is, dodging behind the gorse. The trees come lately. Glass bottle of ether in his pocket.
Rare,
I can hear him.
rare.
He is muttering, poised, as we flutter, bless, touch the sour ground.
They'll soon be extinct. I have to catch one before it's too late.
Do you remember there being a lot more butterflies than there are now?
Yes, I do.
No body and no thing has had permanence on the heath, and maybe that's been its salvation. Until our own sour generation, when transients and transient people seem more and more of a threat.
Nobody wants juices. We don't make a mess. Paper and that we burn. The lads do scrap. You have to earn a bit. We have 6 children here. We bury tins in a hole. There's bad ones who leave a mess. There are bad ones everywhere, not just on the road.
2 traditional horse-drawn caravans, richly carved and exotically painted, red, yellow and green, spend the winter in a barn. One local smallholder has befriended their gypsy owner.
Well, he tries to live as near nature as he can. That was his own words to me. And his lads are not allowed to have dole. He said once the lad's had dole, he's finished for work. And he's reared 6. He gets a rabbit when he wants a rabbit, but they never take more than they want for themselves to eat. When they've caught 3, that'll do.
You can also pick up a partridge or a pheasant round here, can you?
Well, you know, he's not allowed to, is he? But if he finds one on the side of the road, well, all well and good.
I can see on the front of the canvas-covered wagon his name. E for Elijah. Arrowsmith.
That's right.
Elijah points at the earth, the grass, flattened by his booted feet. Child of the open road, The earth will wait a little longer. Prophesy.
There won't be no common here. They're digging it up. Then they'll want the sand and gravel. Then it'll be factories, like at Telford. Oh, lovely that used to be. Beautiful country for miles and miles. Freedom, the open road. My dad, he lost a leg in the war. Afterwards, he'd pull onto a common and the police would move him on. What did he fight for? Freedom? I pawed with my foot, master, and my voice did ring and rhyme, and still I cried, "Waken, master, for now is the hour and time." I pawed the heathland with my foot, and shook my bridle fine.
A horse tethers night one more time, holds the heath firm against uncertain morning. Darkness shapes the mist with wordless voices. Stars dissolve in dew.
And still I cried, "Waken, good master, for now is the hour and time."
Now is the hour and time because the heath is a common. The right to graze cattle and take out as much gravel as you need for domestic use is still held by a handful of commoners, passed down with their property from father to son.
I am the son of Eli Shaw.
And the family have been in the area for 95 years. We as children actually tended cows, sand and gravel, all the rights that a commoner was able to exercise, we have enjoyed.
What was your father's name?
Eli Shaw.
And your grandfather?
Eli Shaw as well.
I am the son of Eli Shaw. I claim my common right of grazing animals on the common and of removing sand and gravel therefrom, and of using the road and pathways above referred to. I am the son of Eli Shaw.
But their common rights and the survival of the green man with them are under assault. An industrial developer could presumably make a lot of money extracting the sand and gravel commercially.
What is the man thinking in Whitchurch in London? What does he mean, confirm sand and gravel? Or is he simply drawing long lines with someone else's plough?
Dear sir, we wrote to you in 1984 and now write to you again on behalf of the new owners, the Great Portland Corporation. We have been instructed by our clients to contact all commoners to ask whether or not they would be prepared to receive either a capital sum or alternatively freehold land in exchange for the extinguishment of commoners' rights over the estate. You see, we've got rights for gravel, sand and gravel. It doesn't say at any particular point or any quantity. So that's the bogey. We can dig anywhere for sand and gravel. And that's the one they'd like to get rid of, you see. If they can get rid of us, and there's 7 of us left, it's a big prize at the end of it for someone.
Would there be a price that you could put on your rights?
No. Because I can manage without the money, and I'd sooner see the common free as it has been for hundreds of years.
Why is it important for the common to be free?
Because there's not another one left between here and London. 300 acres. And also, for another reason, it was a big camp in the First World War, and 40,000 men went off here, and not many come back. So, and that was, they're supposed to fight for freedom, weren't they? And that is my idea of freedom, that communist. Man can't make it. You see, make a park and his rules and regulations, keep off the grass, so on. But on a common, you do what you like within reason.
But there's another threat. Much of the heath has been ploughed up by tenant farmers. Is that within reason?
It's inaccessible to the public, really, and I think, generally speaking, the public won't go where there are crops planted. I mean, they don't really like to trample over crops, which are the greater part of it now.
You wouldn't want the public to feel they could trample on crops wherever they went.
No, but it is common land.
But then, you see, some of the other common rights men are related to farmers and so on, and they're frightened to speak out.
Where we are now, must be about as far as you can get from the main road. We're away to the east of the main road. And it's quite well wooded, this part of the heath. And a lot of oak trees, birch trees, alder, and also covered in the ubiquitous bracken and gorse. Now, is this the heart of what's left of the heath?
Yes, this doesn't actually last for very long, does it? You're soon out of it. It's just a tiny area that's representative of what the heath used to be, because just on the other side of this broom there's a vast expanse of barley and ploughed field, winter barley, just a few inches high at the moment. During the time that I've lived near the heath, over the last few years, the area covered by barley has got bigger and bigger. You only have to move a tractor an extra couple of times round an area every year to give yourself a fantastic increase in acreage. And I think this is what has happened, because we are really in an area where nobody appears to care what happens to the wild area of the heath. And here you can see where the beginnings of the idea of the green man being beaten back and beaten under came from.
Is it the rain or tears clawing at the low horizon, shaking the green to grey monochrome? Tire splash haze from exhausted lorries cries out. Is it an elegy, green man, heath man?
Tell me a bit more about the Green Man. Who or what is the Green Man? Because I'm familiar with the Green Man as a pub sign, basically, where sometimes it refers to Robin Hood and his merry men in Lincoln Green.
Yeah.
But you're referring in the poem to something much more deep, something much more ancient, something of a religious nature, although very early religion.
Well, the green man of the pub sign was this now defunct figure who was all that was left of an earth deity. In nearly every village in England, up until just after the Civil War, they used to have May Day celebrations, and somebody was dressed up as Jack of the Green, and he was covered in a cage with leaves and foliage, and that was a representation of the earth god rising again each spring inevitably and bringing with him life and the life force and all the energy that you need. And it seemed to me on the heath that force, that life force, was being discarded here in a way which was actually visible. You can actually map and plot and write almost week by week how it is being beaten down and destroyed, this earth god. And so the green man became very, very important. If you look in churches, you can see carvings of the green man on pew ends, on misericords, sometimes at the top of pillars. He was very much incorporated into the Christian religion and became part of it. But basically, he is the life force that we're only just beginning to recognise is the thing that we must respect above everything else.
Green gravel, your grass is so green.
Listen, can you hear? The young girls are singing in Prees, in Tilstock. Voices not their own break through the stones under their well-shod feet. The earth voice patterned on borrowed tongues.
Green gravel, your grass is so green. The fairest young maiden that ever was seen.
They circle, singing, chanting, turn their backs, step backwards in the grass. The bracken ties their feet. Humps of broken concrete stumble. Gorse drags them backwards with twists of grass ropes. So that they shall not see. Backwards. So that they shall not recognise your green face.
I'll wash you in new milk and wrap you in silk and write down your name in a gold pen and ink.
But this is a time when even gold pen and ink are dangerous and words are a threat to our security. The contents of the big grey buildings on the heath are a state secret, but one that can't entirely be kept.
Despite the fencing and the wire, one of the problems they seem to have inside the hangars is one of intrusion, but not human intrusion. They have a lot of pigeons and doves who get in through the vents, and they have spend a lot of money and a lot of time blocking up the vents and preventing these birds from getting in and eating this highly classified contents of the grain store. And lovely stories of when the hangar doors are opened, this great flock of birds sweeps out like a scramble of planes in the war perhaps came out, and in a lovely poetic imitation, a natural imitation of that urgency.
A hangar full of air and dry seed shifting to a chuckle of pigeons, and a dove waiting for the doors to swing open, waiting to fly, a scramble of wings.
Pests they are. They get in somehow. We've tried to block up all the vents.
Still they fly, without permission, without the proper authorization.
They're after classified. See, I can't tell you what we've got in there.
But the dove sings it in the air, carries it, drops seed, and the earth receives it. A land of plenty.
I can't help feeling that the pigeons are possibly in the service of the Green Man, and this is one small area in which nature is getting its own back.
Well, I think so, because here the irony of surplus grain is so obvious. We have common land being taken for growing barley, which in fact nobody needs, and on the same site, exactly, and actually within sight of the growing barley, you have the intervention store, which is keeping all this grain from being used. It's surplus to requirement. It's another case of short-term expediency, people being encouraged to grow things which we don't need, which apparently nobody needs since it's still here. All those kind of things that make up a very complex picture of the kind of life we are forcing ourselves into leading.
So, who do you now think did kill Prees Heath?
We've all killed Prees Heath. If not deliberately, then by ignoring the threats to its existence. And it isn't just Prees Heath. We've systematically done the same to all the remaining wild areas of the world.
Why do you think poetry can save the Green Man?
Poetry is probably the only thing that can save him. Only poetry can reveal this complex layering of history, vision, anecdote, perception, with a single stroke of the pen.
Where we stand, the Green Man laughed, but didn't see the grey men plotting.
Hold still and stare, for if we blink, it will all be gone into a crashing chapter of silence.